Morning, guys. It's Miss Arneson, and I'm going to read to you an article for lesson 5. It's about something called comparative anatomy. And of course, I mean, you don't have to watch this video, but if you'd rather have it read to you than just read it yourself, you want to follow along, then here I am reading it to you. I recommend you follow along though. Don't just look at me. Follow along as I read because it'll help you learn it better. Okay, so this is from Encyclopedia Britannica, and it is about the field of science called comparative anatomy. Comparative anatomy, the comparative study of body structures of different species of animals in order to understand adaptive changes they have undergone in the course of evolution from common ancestors. So basically, we look at the bones, the organs of different organisms, and we compare them to see how they're similar and how they're different. Um, for this is a good picture right here of the difference between, I think this is a chimpanzee. Let's see if it says, okay, gorilla. So here's the gorilla pelvis compared to the human pelvis, and this is a female pelvis. Guys' pelvises are a little skinnier than females. But as you can see, like they have basically all the same parts. The only difference is that this one is a lot longer, and that's because gorillas walk on all four of their legs. They can walk on two, but they look kind of funky when they decide to do that. And we look kind of funky when we decide to walk on all fours because we don't have the right shaped pelvis for that. So our bones and gorillas' bones, we have all the same bones, but gorillas' bones are different than ours because they they're they're different. They live in a different place than us. They do different things than us. So here's what it says. The skeletal structure of a human being and a gorilla. Several differences allow the human to walk erect on two legs with a striding gait rather than move in a knuckle walking fashion like the gorilla. In the pelvis, these differences include a shorter ischia, a broader sacrum, and a broader curved in ilia with a lower iliac crest. In the legs, the femurs, or those are called the thigh bones in common language, are relatively long and are set further apart at the hips than they are at the knees. So this is an example of how, like, when you're looking at a scientific field, the experts, they have a lot of vocabulary that's specific to their field. And so like we don't like really study these words. So if you wanted to know what those were, you could zoom in closer on this picture, but that's just for your own interest. All right, let's get past these ads. Okay, modern comparative anatomy dates back from the work of French naturalist Pierre Belon, who in 1555 showed that the skeletons of humans and birds are constructed of similar elements arranged in the same way. From this humble beginning, knowledge of comparative anatomy advanced rapidly in the 18th century due to the work of two French naturalists, Georges-Louis Leurec, Comte de Buffon, and Louis-Jean-Marie Daubenton. I don't know. Daubenton. I don't know. I'm mixing up my Spanish and my French pronunciations right now. Who compared the anatomies of a wide range of animals. In the 19th century, French zoologist Georges Cuvier placed the field on a more scientific basis by asserting that an animal's structural and functional characteristics result from their interaction with their environment. So the reason that these organisms, even though they're very similar in a lot of ways, the reason they have those differences is because they're adaptations for the environment in which they survive, or the niche, their place in nature. Oh, now I have to find my place. Cuvier also rejected the 18th century notion that the members of the animal kingdom are arranged in a single linear series from the simplest up to humans. Instead, Cuvier arranged all animals into four large groups. Vertebrates. So vertebrates mean that they have a vertebrae, a spinal column, mollusks, articulates, and radiates. And so we don't even have any of these categorizations anymore because those are older. The only one that's left over is vertebrates. As we got more scientific information about different organisms, these ones went away because there were better categories to put them in. But he arranged them by their body plan. So like, how is their body formed? Another great figure in the field was the 19th century British anatomist Sir Richard Owen, whose vast knowledge of vertebrate structure did not prevent him from opposing the theory of evolution by natural selection, which was developed and made famous by British naturalist Charles Darwin. Darwin made extensive use of comparative anatomy in advancing his theory, and in turn it revolutionized the field by explaining the structural differences between species as arising out of their evolutionary descent by natural selection from a common ancestor. So basically, I know that's like a lot of big words. Basically, what that paragraph means is if you look at, and these are several different creatures, I have to zoom in order to read what they are. I could guess, but I don't want to be wrong and then tell you guys the wrong thing. Oop, I'm zooming out instead of in. Zoom in, zoom in. Okay, so we've got a turtle, a dolphin, a horse, a human, a bird, and a bat. All of these have these different bones that are categorized right here and they're color coded. So like everyone has a humerus, all of these species. And so that humerus bone shows us that these creatures are all related, but it also shows us that they have a common ancestor. So comparative anatomy doesn't try to say like, well, horses came from humans or humans came from horses. But it does say that way back, okay, talking probably billions of years, we had a common ancestor with the horse. And that's why we both have this bone. But because we've been independently evolving for many years as species, ours are different than theirs now. They used to be the same because we have a common ancestor, but now there's these differences, and those differences are because of adaptations over evolutionary history. Okay, let's get rid of this picture. I think it's lost. Oh, I'm gonna pause and try to figure. I'm back. Here we go. Keep it scrolling. All right, since Darwin's time, the study of comparative anatomy has centered largely on the body structures that are homologous. Homo means the same. So I mean, it's easier for me to remember this because homosexual means that you are attracted to people of the same sex as you. So homologous has homo at the beginning, so it's telling us something about the same. Just as a side note, there's the opposite of homo as a prefix is hetero, and hetero means different. And if you're heterosexual, you like people who are a different sex than you. And that will give you a lot of clues about biological words because they use the word homologous and heterogeneous and all the time in biology. So I'm going to start that sentence again since I interrupted it. Since Darwin's time, the study of comparative anatomy has centered largely on body structures that are homologous. These are the ones that in different species have the same evolutionary origin regardless of their present-day function. Such structures may look quite different and perform different tasks, but they can still be traced back to a common structure and an animal that was ancestral to both. For example, the forelimbs of humans, birds, crocodiles, bats, dolphins, and rodents have all been modified by evolution to perform different functions, but they are all evolutionarily traceable to the fins of the Crossopterygian fishes. Oh, whoa. Okay, so if you wanted to learn more about those fishes, this is the common ancestor of you and me and the horse. I'm going to try pronouncing that again. Crossopterygian fishes. Which that basic arrangement of bones was first established. Analogous structures, by contrast, may resemble each other because they perform the same function, but they have different evolutionary origins on a different structure. So like the wings of insects and birds have a common ancestor, but their wings are not a result of that. So the wings of insects are totally different than the wings of birds. In fact, insects don't even have bones. They have exoskeletons, while birds have bones on the inside. So they both developed wings, but they did that independently of each other. They're not coming from a common ancestor. All right, that is this article. If you have any questions, please let me know.